direction. Just look around and find at least something good. All you need will come to you. I'll never end you still.
Welcome back to Two Canadians at Kafe Lise, a bigger podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Anton, and with me is...
DJ Spencer.
And today we're going to be talking about Fabrikk Fiske. Nope, Fiske Fabrikk. That's what I meant. Got it backwards. It's the feature map this season, which is season 7 at the time of recording. It's a map that's been around a long time, but had been taken out during season 6 due to some technical issues with it. So it just came back this last season. Came back a little different than when we last saw it, but not too different. It's still essentially the same map. So we figured it'd be a good time to do a little highlight on it, talk to you a little bit about it, because there's a lot of PlayStation players where this is their first time playing it, and a lot of Xbox players, it's been a while since they've played it, or if they've, maybe you're new and it's going to be your first time seeing it as well. So we figured good time to just dig into it, and and check it out. It's an interesting map. One of the things that they've changed this season, now in previous seasons, they always had what was called the featured map, and that would be of your map selections, you'd have the random maps, but then on the side you would always have one map that's always the same for the season, and they called it the featured map. This season, since they didn't bring out a new map, they just brought Fiske back. They decided to call it the classic. Is it classic vigor, or what is it called?
Classic maps or classic encounters?
Classic encounters, something like that. It's classic something. We're on the ball today, so. But it's classic either vigor or encounters or whatever. So they renamed it a little bit, but it's essentially the same thing. It's their featured map, at least for now. Maybe they're planning on changing the featured map through the season. They haven't really announced that or anything, so I'm kind of curious what'll happen with the name change, making it more generic. Maybe the one to like feature different maps, but
they had talked about that in a dev stream. I want to say like in season 5.
Oh, okay.
Or 4.
Yeah.
They talked about making like the featured map type thing and rotating it every like 2-3 weeks or something like that.
Okay.
But it's never been implemented. But there was talk at one point having kind of like a rotation in the featured map spot.
Okay. Well, so maybe that's something they're looking at doing now. So I guess time will tell. We're recording this episode on February 20th. So the new season's been going for a couple weeks now. Our previous episode was a look at the new season. So we're at the 2-week mark, or just over the 2-week mark at this point. And they are talking about there's definitely going to be a little update coming within the next week for PlayStation players, at least, to help at this point with some of the issues that the PlayStation players have been having. I don't know if that's going to be a full iteration update or if it's just going to be a little hotfix. So we could see at that point if they make any changes. And if not, maybe if there is a full like a 7.1 update coming soon, maybe they'll change things up at that point and give us a different featured map. But at this time of recording, it's Fiske.
Yeah. It's just a hot fix coming out.
It's just a hot fix.
It was in the tweet they posted on the 18th.
Yeah, I knew it was like a hot fix, but I was kind of curious. I didn't know if it was going to be more than like how they were going to push it out. Like how is it just going to be PlayStation players, please reboot, it'll install the hotfix and that's it? Or I guess we'll see. Time will tell.
Yeah, typically the updates happen on like a Tuesday night or like early Wednesday mornings.
Yeah.
Type thing.
Yeah.
And then there's like bug fixes and stuff apparently on a weekly basis during that time frame too. So
yeah, true.
But yeah.
Other interesting, there's like 14 points of interest on this map, and we're going to go through the different points of interest as we record and tell you about them. I'll be throwing them up as we're talking about it, and I'll highlight on the map the different points of interest, as you know, just so you can see where they are. Because if you haven't unlocked them on your map yet, then this will give you an idea of, oh, that's that. We're talking about this particular one. I haven't seen it yet. There you go. Other notable features about this map: there is a lighter that's specific to it for the collectors, and that was a big thing. You know, it's gone for a whole season, and people are saying, "I need this last lighter." It's on this map. It's what do they call it? Is it called the fish lighter? No, it's not. It's like, or the factory lighter.
Yeah, it's the fist lighter. So
Yeah, the Fiske lighter, and it has a picture of a fish on it. Um, so yeah, we might as well talk about the lighter now since I'm talking about it. Let's just finish talking
sure.
about it. It is generated, and I haven't seen anything to. I haven't heard anything that it's changed at all in the boss's office locations. And so as we go through the locations, there's one called the boss's office. We'll talk about it now since we're talking about it. It's the very top. It's like a big factory building at the top of the map, and this lighter will generate in a few different locations within that building. Sometimes it's on top of lockers. When I first found it, I found it on a lunch table. There's like a few floors in this building, and one of them you can see what has a few tables that are lined up, and that's I call it the lunch area, and I'm assuming that's what it is.
Mhm.
So I found it there. Um, I'm not sure. Have you found it? Do you know of any other locations within the building?
Yeah, I found mine at the bottom landing of the stairs, like heading up to
Oh,
the
okay.
lunch area.
Yep.
So at the bottom landing, there's like a little coffee table type thing up against the wall
Oh.
opposite of the stairs, and that's where mine was.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Okay, that's cool.
Um, but yeah, definitely check the locker rooms
Yep.
and the boss's office itself. And then across the factory floor, there's another set of locker rooms, and apparently it spawned in there too.
Okay. So check all lockers. So locker seems to be a theme, and tables. So tables as well. The boss's office. I got on the PlayStation. It's the only lighter I need, and I thought I had found it, and I was in the boss's office. I picked it up. It was the lucky lighter. So the
Oh
lucky
no.
lighter can spawn in the boss's office. Pass. So I was so heartbroken. It's like, no, this isn't the
Yep.
lighter. It's supposed to be here.
And that's the thing, right? It's a special issue
Hmm.
lighter.
It's a gold
It's
lighter.
one of
Yeah,
yeah, it's one of four or five special issue ones,
I
and
believe so. Yeah.
uh, so the spawn rate is very rare, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, I could understand where you're coming from because it was at the right spot.
It's the right spot. And it's the last lighter I need, and it wasn't it. But that's the like you can find other collectibles in this map. There's trolls. If you're near a pier, you can find the sea troll because it's sort of a I don't know what you want to call this. It is a coastal sort of little area. So the piers can have a sea troll. I'm assuming you can find like this. I'm not sure if you can find this. You probably not the snow troll, but you can probably find in the hilly areas. You might be able to find a
Yep.
cave troll. I'm not sure though. Maybe in the
Um,
tunnel.
yeah, the tunnel has the earth troll, which is the
Okay.
cave troll, I think,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right?
Earth troll.
Um, and I've seen the I want to call it the lightning troll, or is
Oh,
it the storm troll?
storm troll. I think it is. Yeah.
And the air troll as well,
Okay.
because the air trolls typically like at the highest peak
Hmm.
of a
Yep.
map. So
And there's a lot of
uh,
peaks in this
you know,
map. Yeah.
exactly. So those are the ones I've kind of stumbled across.
Yep. Okay. So yeah, so there's quite a few trolls you can find. A few different lighters because there's the one we're talking about. The lighter can be found on multiple buildings in this one. I found it, I think, in a couple different ones. I think quite often the lucky lighter can be found on a second level of most houses. I have found it
Hmm.
on first levels on a few occasions, but typically it's a second level. You might be able to find the the kitchen timer lighter, which is the tomato lighter. I'm not 100% sure, but that one seems to be non-map specific, so it could spawn anywhere. So I wouldn't be surprised if it could spawn on here. Albums, I'm assuming you could probably find albums. I don't know if I found any albums on this one yet.
Uh,
I can't say that I've come across any albums yet.
the funny thing is, like, I've already found all the vinyls, so like on Fisk, I've never actually looked
No,
for them.
same. Yeah.
But I think I've found or heard one in the boss's office, like in that building, and the other
Oh, maybe.
like warehouse building.
Yeah. And I'm fairly sure I've heard of some vinyls, maybe in some of the houses that are on the
Yeah.
eastern side. So I'm sure you'll be able to find vinyls. So we're not going to be very helpful in vinyls, unfortunately, because we haven't been looking for them. But I just
Yeah.
came to realize that you might be looking for vinyls. So vinyls are one of those things. Keep your ear open, because you'll hear the scratching of the record as it's turning. So you'll know you're near a vinyl. And vinyls are always going to be, well, I shouldn't say always, typically going to be indoors in a house, on a shelf or something. They can occasionally be on picnic tables outside of a house in some instances. So if you're looking for vinyls, stay around the settlements. That's where we're going to find them usually. And here I'll be wrong. Someone's going to say, "Oh, you can find it in this picnic table up in the mountains." Oh, great. So just listen for it, then you'll know. Okay, but that's the type. That's the collectibles. The collectibles, you're going to find them usually indoors. Some lighters, you'll probably be able to find multiple lighters on this map as well, other than the main one. But the main lighter you're looking for on this map is going to be in the one that's in the boss's office building, which is that big factory building, sort of on the tip of the top corner of this map. But yeah, that's, I guess, before we, well, it'll be part of the POIs. We'll talk about the terrain as we talk about the POIs, just because a lot of these POIs are very terrain specific as they are. So as we're talking about the POIs, we'll talk about the terrain around them. We're going to work our way across the map, so we'll do our best here. So if we're going to go from left to right, what's our first point of interest?
That would be the Western Settlement, which is
Yeah.
by the most western exit.
Right.
So there's a few houses. You could get your typical house loot, like the floor loot. I think there's like one or two combo boxes that may be found around those houses there.
Yeah, there's a couple that can spawn for sure. Yeah.
And there's definitely like a couple of spawn points in and around that area.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, I find that area pretty quiet in general.
Well,
It's
I typically find if I spawn over there, there's at least one other person who spawns there. Like if I'm doing solos, if I'm spawned anywhere near there, I know for sure there's going to be at least one more person, maybe two, depending on where you spawn. Because the way it's laid out, it's like a grouping on like one side of the road, closer to the water. There's about there's like two houses with a couple garages, and then one other little building that's almost like a pier building on one side of the road. And on the other side of the road is a house with a garage and a little shed kind of building. Typically, I've spawned on either side of the road. So if you're spawning on the one side, on the mountainy side, I've spawned like right at the garage. I've spawned, right in that little area, or up the mountain a little bit. I've spawned as well.
Yeah.
So like it's just a quick little jog down to that house.
Yeah.
And then typically if I'm on that side, I know someone's going to be spawning on the ocean side or the coastal side. And so you have to be careful, listen for, where someone could be running to you. As they're looting, they may not be thinking about you at all, but as they're looting, listen for them. There's at least two spawns, and then there's probably a third not far away. So, because I've had it where I've had like myself and two others in close proximity in a fairly short period of time. So, And then there's an exit right there too. So at the end of the road, to the far, right by the mountainy house, there's an exit right at the end of that little road. And so if you're at that mountain house and someone comes near, birds are going to go off fairly quickly. So it doesn't take much to trigger birds right near that house. Yeah.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. And then going up a little bit along the coast is another little sort of tucked away, almost cabin, waterfront cabin kind of, and that's sort of around the mountains. Yeah. So that's the western settlement. As we go eastern from it, at the end of the road is a tunnel. Like there's like a through mountain tunnel. And it's a point of interest itself, and it's called the Tunnel Blockade.
Yeah, and that is a great spot for fuel because,
Yeah.
there is a locked exit on this map,
Yeah, we didn't talk
which we'll
about
talk
that.
about later
Yeah.
on. But, if you need to get out by that exit, if you're kind of making your way that way, the tunnel is a great spot for fuel.
Hmm.
And then there's a bunch of cars as well that you could loot. I think there's two of those red crates that may contain the airdrop
Yeah, there's a
at
potential for a
either end of
couple,
it.
couple locations where an airdrop can spawn. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a pretty good spot for loot.
Yeah,
And
it really is.
the only thing the only thing I worry about is if you're looting cars and the alarm goes off.
Yeah.
Then
They'll know where you
it's
are.
like,
Yeah. But that's the same with
yeah,
any car
exactly.
anywhere. Like if a car alarm goes
Yeah,
off, it shows up on the map. People know you're there.
yeah. But
And along
you're
this
kind of
tunnel, we
stuck,
didn't
right?
mention, there's a service tunnel that runs along beside the car tunnel
Yes.
part. So it's a little service corridor as well.
Mhm.
And it has like
Yeah.
multiple entrances. Yeah.
Yeah, my only issue is like if the car alarm goes off, it's because like there's only one way in and out, right, of
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
tunnel, or sorry, two ways, one on each end, right? So it's like,
Yeah.
uh, yeah,
So
I'm
they
not a big fan of cars there.
Yeah, so they'll know where you're going to be coming out. So if they have time on their hands, they could try to ambush you at one end. So that's true.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I have seen where the at this point, there's the three different lootable points of interest. There's the barred house still. There's the container. Does the container show up on this map?
The lock container,
Yeah,
yes.
it does. Okay.
Yeah, it's been in kind of like the hilly areas.
Oh, okay. I haven't actually seen it on this map yet. I've typically seen barred, and I've seen the timed safe, and I've seen the timed safe in this tunnel, and in that little service corridor I talked about. There's a room at each end of that corridor. That sort of like the corridor branches off either back to where the cars are, or to a little side room, and there's one at each end of the service corridor, like basically the two ends of the tunnel. I've seen that time safe spawn in either of those two rooms, and then the switches being like somewhere down the tunnel, so you have to run, like make a beeline from one end of the tunnel to the other to try to get the two switches. I haven't
Hmm.
found where you couldn't get both switches yourself yet. So I think they keep them within, but there's still a bit of a run to get to them. But that's something to be aware of, that the time safe can show up in this tunnel. Yeah. Yeah, so that's the tunnel blockade. So we did the Western Settlement tunnel blockade. Just above, when I say above, to the north of the tunnel blockade is a location called the Empty Bay. What's that one like?
Yeah, there's quite a few little houses and stuff like that. There's
Right.
a decent amount of loot to be had. Fertilizer, um, mostly like you'll find the odd glass. But if you keep moving
Yeah.
easternly, um,
Yeah.
there's a bunch of houses there too, right? And then you'll find a lot more loot, or a bigger variety too. Like you'll start seeing chemicals and stuff like that.
Yeah.
A lot of glass. Um, So, and there's like one really nice spawn point right at Empty Bay, where you could like literally
Yeah.
start looting right now, right like off the spawn and right off the hop.
Sort of, yeah.
And like
Yeah, because if you're
it's definitely like a looter's
hmm
dream spawn, anyways, for this map. There's a couple other ones there, but this is definitely one of them.
yeah. And the empty bay is interesting because it's sort of like its own little road, and
Yeah.
it has between the empty bay and we talked earlier about Boss's office. There's no points of interest between those two locations. It's like, but you can, if you start at the empty bay or close to it, you could just do a loot train of all the houses all the way up to Boss's office, and you can get quite a
Yeah.
really good selection of loot. There's vehicles, at least one buried cache location, and that's sort of like halfway between the two those 2 points of interest. There's a couple red houses, and then after those little red houses is a garage, and then right beside that garage is one of the buried caches that I always remember because it's one of the few ones that are in that location in that area.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and the lock container does spawn occasionally on that road.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
Not at Empty Bay there, but those houses that you're talking about where the garage is.
So more, yeah,
I'm
more
pretty
along
sure
the
I've seen it.
main drag kind of thing. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Good to know.
I've seen it once, I think, once or twice.
Yeah. Okay. So then going back to points of interest, we did Empty Bay, and then south of Tunnel Blockade is one called the Endless Lookout, and this is like a sort of on top of a mountain. So this is where things get really hilly. Like this whole area is very hilly. A lot of fall potential in this map, especially
Yep.
in these particular spots because there's a lot of cliffs. If you're not careful as you're trying to move between them, you can fall and take quite a bit of fall damage. So you got to be really careful. When you're at some of these points of interest, they're not fully exposed, but they're kind of exposed. So if
Yep.
somebody's looking for you, there's a they have a almost like a good field of view right to you when you're at these things. But it's called the Endless Lookout. The signal the
Yep.
signal can spawn there, and you typically there's going to be some. I think it's mostly meds that can spawn there, like meds or med parts. I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's usually like two to three consumable boxes, and I think there's like the odd like nail container
Yeah.
there as well.
Yeah. So that's an interesting little location, the Endless Lookout. It has like a little covered area, and like I said, as far as the signal detector goes, I think there's like three main areas the signal detector spawns in this map. This one,
Uh,
and two other locations that aren't named, from my
yeah,
thinking.
there's actually four.
Is there a fourth one?
There's four spawn points.
Okay.
Yeah.
I always
So
think of
there's
these
this is one of
three.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's this one. The only other one at a named location is the bottom right, Lonely or Lonely Johansson's.
Oh, Lonely
Um,
Johanson gets
it-
the signal? Okay.
yeah.
I couldn't remember that. Okay. So
Yeah.
that
So
would be the fourth
there's
then. Yeah.
four basically.
Okay. Yeah. Um, yeah, so that's Endless Lookout. Oh, go
I
ahead.
kind of one thing about Endless
hmm
Lookout when the signal detector is there is it's interesting because there's like a bunch of spawn points that are like they're close but they're not too close,
hmm
and depending on who's playing, you could get like a mad rush where there's like three, four people all getting there all at the same time,
And then
right?
you have a big
And
fight. Yeah.
yeah, it always makes it kind of like interesting.
Yep.
It's one of the neat signal spawn points, anyways,
hmm
my
Yeah,
opinion.
absolutely. And that's Endless Lookout. But then just a little south of that is one called Campsite in Mountains. And this is a neat one too, because there's a lot of healing consumables that can be found around here. And it's
Yep.
kind of weird because it's almost like two campsites. There's like the one campsite that has some healing consumables around it. Then just up a path a little bit is like a second campsite that doesn't typically have a lot around it. But it does have this sort of like wood shelter next to it, and right beside that wood shelter is a buried cache location that I always think of and always try to check if I can. Um,
Yep.
yeah, and then campsite. There's not much more to say about campsite in the woods, in the mountains, I
Yeah.
should say. In the woods. What am I saying?
Yeah, like
Woods.
you get the odd chemical and stuff like that.
Yeah,
And like you said, consumables.
yeah. What would be next then if we were going from campsite and mountains?
I guess Egil's hideout,
Okay.
which is like the bottom, almost like bottom middle of the map.
Yeah, pretty
There's
much middle of the
an
map.
exit
Yeah.
nearby too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's pretty much just like a little storage shed type thing. There can be a comm station that spawns in there.
Yep.
There's a lockbox that does happen to spawn in there occasionally as
Yep.
well.
Underneath it is a red box
Yep,
that can sometimes have an airdrop in it.
yep,
So when I say
and
underneath it, it's sort of like on stilts, and then just underneath the platform with the little shed is another little walk area. That's what I mean by underneath. And
mhm,
there's a buried cache location there too.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, and there's a spawn point like literally like footsteps away from it
yeah. A
as
couple.
well.
There's actually a couple because there's
Yeah,
one that's just sort of south and west a little bit, and then there's another one that's sort of east from it. So there's two different people who
yes,
could potentially be running to that location if they so choose. Yeah.
yeah, and if you keep going east, there's one of the unnamed signal spawns that we kind of like
hmm
talked about earlier. It's like a couple of quadrants over
Yeah, and
as well.
if you're looking at where this Egil or Eagle, I don't know how they pronounce it. This
Yeah, I'm not
hideout,
sure.
yeah, this little hideout location is like a little path. If you're looking on the map, there's a little path. If you follow that path to the east, the path sort of juts out and sort of does like a little curve. And where that curve, the point of that curve is kind of where the signal can be. It's just a little off it, and it's like at the top of these little rocks. But that's where the signal can be, another signal
Yeah.
location. And on the map that we're going to put up in the as we're talking about it, that's where the signal is. So you'll see it as we're talking about it.
Yep.
Yeah. But then next, I guess, if we're moving along from Eggo's hideout, if you go up north and to the east a little bit, and a little bit is almost middle of the map, just off to east a little bit from the middle of the map, is called the Lost Patrol location. And I think that's where is it like a broken down tank or something? Or
Yes.
okay,
Yeah, it's a broken down tank.
yeah,
There's like a little bit of there's a couple of weapon crates, I think, and maybe some metal parts. They're like little containers.
yeah,
Not a whole lot. There is like a cash spot nearby.
not too far. And I
Um,
think the tank shows up in the picture for the cache spot that's nearby.
yes.
So it's like a little bit of ways from the tank. So the tank's like in the picture. But I think like the location for the actual buried cache is off to the side, or it's more kind of east and south. But yeah, there is a location
Yeah.
not far from the Lost Patrol. Yeah.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
And you're pretty close to like a bunch of houses and stuff like that. That's when you start getting to like
Back to the other
a
settlements.
more
Yeah.
yeah, like a more residential area
hmm
and a lot better loot anyways.
Yeah. 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 Because I guess our next name location from the Lost Patrol will be Cafe Lise. Hey.
Yep.
And it's yeah, because so these little locations here, these little houses and all that, they're almost like in on a little side road that juts off from the main road um, as you're looking at the map. And Cafe Lise is sort of at the top of this little section of little houses and whatever. And so again, it's residential. So you're going to be finding your typical stuff that you find around those areas. Glass, um, I think potentially some fertilizer. What else can
Yep.
be there?
Uh, there's the combo boxes or lock boxes that are there. Um, Cafe Lise itself has Bard House occasionally, I believe.
Okay.
Um, and then the house there's a yellow house just south of it
Yeah,
that will occasionally have the time safe as well.
that's right. It'll have the time save. That in that yellow house has a garage and a shed sort of behind it. So there's a garage to the side and a
Yep.
shed to the behind it. People really like to get up on the roof of that yellow house. So be
Oh yeah.
careful. Always be aware of your surroundings when you're around it, because it's a TP'd roof. So you might be coming from one direction and not realize someone's up there, and they'll be able to see you because they're sort of peeking the top without you seeing them. Um, so that's good to be aware of. Listen for metal because the roof's metal, so might hear someone moving around on metal. So there's a good
Yep.
chance that they might be on that roof.
I might be on that roof.
Hey, there you go. And there's also a buried cache at this location. On the other side, like there's the garage on one side of the house. So on the other side of the house from the garage, the house has a bit of a stilt section, sort of around the driveway, and underneath that walking part of the house where the stilts are, there's a buried cache in there.
Yep.
Yeah. And there's also a few other houses, like across the street. There's a blue house that has a big garage. It can typically have some. It might have a locked box sometimes, I think, or
Yes.
some other loot as well. So it's another good loot location. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely like there's a spawn point right at Cafe Lise, and like that's another like prime
Yeah.
spawn point for like loot because you're like one of the prime locations of this map.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to get some loot, so
Yeah.
and you're close to pretty much everything, really,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Yeah. You are definitely. And then after Cafe Lise, if we're going to, I guess, move east. As you're moving east is the main road that goes all the way down to the bottom, the southeast of the map, and then sort of the main road sort of follows like an angle, sort of like a right angle. It goes from the bottom southeast of the map up until you're sort of like in the northeast part of the map, and then angles down, goes through the big tunnel, and takes you through the western settlement down to the sort of western part of the map. So the way the angle works, when we're at Cafe Lise and we're moving east, we're going across that road,
Yeah,
and
yeah, because we already talked
yeah.
about this boss's office, so we might as well just skip
Yeah, we
the
talked about
boss's
boss's
office.
office, so you already know about that one. Now the boss's office can also have the barred house. I think we talked about that before. The boss's office itself, it could be barred. And I'm not sure if the time safe can show up there or not. It might. I don't know if I've seen it though,
I have not seen it there
so
yet.
we're not sure. And boss's
Yep.
office, that area can be a drop point. So if you're using the comm station to move things around, boss's office, that whole little section is an area you can highlight, and so the drop can quite often show up there. People tend to like just to drop it there, and there's multiple
Yep.
reasons for that. There's a mountainy area that overlooks the boss's office, where signals can also be sometimes,
Hmm.
and so if people want to like try to camp the boss's area, there's a mountainy area that really has a direct line on it. And the boss's office itself, that building, you can get on the roof, and once you're on the roof of that, and it's a pretty tall building, you have a really good view of everything. Yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, and I'm not sure. I think the drop can even land on the roof sometimes.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. It can.
yeah. So
It's kind of fun because like some newer players don't know how to get to the roof, and so you could do it from within the building itself if you go up to the boss's
the actual
office and then
boss's
you jump
office.
out the
Yeah,
window.
yeah.
um, then you could get onto the roof that way. But you could also get out, uh, like on the back northwest side of the building itself.
Okay.
You could jump onto some containers,
Mm.
or not containers, but they're like crates.
Yeah.
And then you jump up there, and then you jump onto another roof, and then another roof, and like you're up there basically at the same point where you come out of the boss's office.
So there's a couple
So
ways.
there's,
Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
yeah. And also in that area is the pier, and there's the pier exit. The map we're going to throw up doesn't show it as locked, but when it's locked, it'll be like a red lock on it. and to unlock it, now you need 5 fuel. So that's
Yep.
where fuel can come in really important. And if you haven't looted the tunnel, it can be hard to find the fuel. Like you're going to hit vehicles, but not every vehicle has fuel. So it could be if you're running out of time, it can be a mad dash to try to find fuel because you may not have time to get to another exit. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because
Yeah.
like there's some spots where you could find like the odd gas container, but
Hmm.
like it's almost like a crapshoot type thing.
Yeah.
Um, because like you said, there's some in some vehicles, but then you could find the odd ones around like the little fisherman buildings that are near that exit.
Hmm.
And then there's even like the we'll talk about it a little later. There's like a little like a military base type thing,
Hmm.
and that has the odd canister as well. But are you going to get the 5 you
The
need?
5 you
I
need.
don't know.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. But moving from these pier houses, the next named location is called Old Storage Junk, and it's kind of
Yeah,
these warehouses, like a row of 3 warehouses that are all connected. You can't run in between them inside, but there's you can go from door to door, sort of on the outside to get between the 3. So that's one of the named locations.
yeah, and I've never been a big fan of like these types of buildings in the game because it just seems for the size, there's not a whole lot of loot to be had. It's like the return on investment on your time isn't really worth it unless like Bard House does spawn here
Yeah.
in one of them and time safe as well.
Yeah, the time safe can also spawn here. Yeah.
So and this place here it is fairly busy because you have like a bunch of spawn points nearby.
Oh
Like
yeah.
there's a man-made peninsula on the other side of it. There's up to 2 spawn points there.
Hmm.
There's one that's like just south of it at another POI that we'll talk about next, the market. And then Cafe Lise is closed. So like there's a bunch of close little spawn points near
It
here.
can get messy
Uh,
real fast. Yeah.
yes, indeed.
And there's a lot of vehicles in the area too, so a lot of chances to loot and also trigger alarms. So
Hmm.
yeah. And then as you mentioned, there's that little sort of island or whatever that's connected by a man-made sort of pathway just to the east of this location, which has 2 spawn points. I'm trying to think, is there a buried? Yeah, there's a buried cache, not on the island itself, but close to our next POI. There's some fish drying, some fish drying structures, where you can
Yeah.
sometimes get food. There is a buried cache location there, in those, I believe. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure.
I'm not familiar with that one.
Yeah,
Fisk is like the one map that I really struggle with
yeah,
for cache locations. There's only a couple that I know of, and the other ones I kind of struggle with.
yeah. And
I'm not
I
gonna lie.
found quite a few, but so I don't know if I found them all, but I have found quite a few. Come to think of it, I think there's even some over by boss's office. There's another fish drying things that I think there might be a buried cache uh, around there somewhere too. But our next POI is now on this map that we're going to show you. It's called StorMarked, but we think it's StorMarket. It might be different. There might be a thing there, so we're not 100% sure if this is spelled right. This is a map we got online, so it's a very good map. The guy who put it together was awesome, but there might be 1 or 2 spelling mistakes, so
Yep.
grain of salt. But at the store market or marked whatever um, is a it can have the bard, I believe. Can it? I'm not sure now. I'm
I've
not sure.
no, I don't think I've ever seen it in this one.
No,
Like this building,
it's the
you
same
find it
building.
like
Yeah.
yeah, on Forest. Forest does have the Bard House there.
Mm-hmm.
And then on Grontheim it's there too, but
Yeah.
it doesn't have the Bard House there either.
No,
But Fisk, I don't think. Yeah, I'd never seen it.
it may not. Yeah, I
At
might be.
Bard.
I might be thinking one of those other maps. That's true.
But yeah, the market has, like, like you mentioned before, there's a bunch of cars outside.
Yeah,
There's a phone booth. There's some weapon crates here if
quite a few weapon
anyone's
crates.
trying to do.
Yep.
Yeah, if someone's doing like the zero to hero runs, like this is one spot that does have the weapon crates. Um, so other than that, there's not a whole lot to
No,
be had within the actual building itself,
no. It's yeah, it's
aside from the weapon crates.
yeah. The weapon crates. It's kind of poor for loot within the building, but because of the vehicles around it, that sort of helps.
Yeah.
Helps improve the loot a little bit. Yeah. But yeah, there's not a lot to say about it. It is like we said with the old storage junk, right in the middle of a bunch of spawns. So if you're anywhere in this area at the beginning of the game, there's a good chance you're going to run into people from either any direction really, because they could be coming from the island, they could be coming from Kafe Lise, they could be coming down from the south, from one of the other. There's a couple of spawns to the south of it, so it can get really busy real quick. Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure.
What's next? I think next might be that military thing, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, and they call it
So
Freeman's Camp.
Freeman's Camp.
Yeah.
So it's like a military campsite. There's a bunch of tents. You can find, like kind of mentioned before, the odd gas container. Um, there's fire pits, which
Yeah.
usually you could find fire trolls,
True.
um,
Yep.
which I just thought of.
Yeah.
Um, there's there's the odd consumable containers as well.
Mm.
Um, and again, there's like a lot of cars around here.
Yep. A lot of vehicles. That's true. Yeah. Yeah. So it's a good location to look for fuel if you're in a mad dash trying to find some fuel. But you're also at this point you're kind of in between the two exits, the locked
Yep.
exit and the bottom southeast exit. So you almost want to make the run for the southeast one if you can, but maybe you don't have enough time.
That is true.
Yeah, it is tight. It is really tight. So
And to the east of it, like there's a little side road, and there's a couple of like fisherman buildings type thing.
yeah.
There's actually like some good loot there. Like you get, like, I think glass,
Hmm.
fertilizer, maybe chemicals, if I remember correctly.
I think
Um,
they can spawn there in some of the different types of drawers. Yeah,
yeah, and there is, like, I know for sure there's a spawn point right between the two buildings that are there.
yeah,
Um,
and fertilizer just lying on the ground too, like floor
yeah,
loot. Yeah, and that whole little sort of stretch going from those two uh, fisherman huts or whatever they are up into the boss's office, that whole kind of row along the coast, those houses, if you're looking for glass, that's probably the best
yep,
location, like on this map, the best locations to find glass, because all these kind of little fisherman huts, while they don't have a lot in them, there's always usually at the very back of them one drawer that'll have like quite a bit of glass in them. And so if you go from hut to hut to hut to hut to hut, you can get a good collection of glass.
yep. Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And then,
Yeah,
yeah,
aside from Victorson Station, I honestly think Fisk might be the best map for glass.
yeah, quite possibly. And it may not seem like it because, it seems like it's a very hilly map. It's almost like a combination of like, um, I almost want to say Grantheim in a way, because you have all these sort of little settlements in one sort of section of it. But then you have like a combination of that, and then a combination of almost like Felcanton, because where you get this really hilly area where like the big meat of the map in the bottom is all this hilly terrain where you can snipe, you can fall, you can do a whole bunch of stuff. So it's kind of a neat little combination map in a way.
Yeah, like personally, I prefer being spawned either by like Empty Bay or on the eastern side of it,
Hmm.
because it just seems like if you're the bottom left type thing, like the southwestern section, it just seems like you run a lot.
Yeah, if you spawn in the hilly areas, you're just running because you're not near anything. You might find a little bit of loot, but there's not much
Yeah,
there. So you got to run to where the
yeah,
loot is and hope that something's still
yeah.
there. Yeah.
you'll get the odd food there, but yeah.
Yeah.
And I like with my luck, I always end up getting caught on like a random branch or rock, and then I start cursing because it's like why aren't I moving?
Yeah,
And
there's a lot of
uh,
potential to get caught. Like every little rock. I was in a map in a game on this map, and it was, I was doing fairly well, and I think it was one where I was in the middle of the mountains near the campsite in the mountains, and the drop popped there, and I was close by. I said, "Okay, I'm just going to go for it." I grabbed the drop, and I was trying to run for the middle southern exit, and I was like trying to run as fast as I could, but I kept getting stopped for every little rock. I like run, oof, what? It's
yeah.
a rock. Oof. It's like
Yep.
it's driving me insane.
Yep.
Yeah,
I know that feeling.
yeah. Um, but going back to the points of interest, we talked about Freeman's Camp, which is sort of the military camp. And then there's only two left now. When you go down the road some more, closer to the southeastern exit, there's one on the road called Lonely. I'm not sure if it's Johanson, probably Johanson. Um,
Yeah.
and it's like a house with a garage and a shed. But it's a location that people can spawn. Like, one at least one, maybe two spawn locations not far from here. Like you can spawn
Yeah.
right on it, or you can spawn a little ways away from it. And
Yeah.
and it has like you said, it can have the signals at it, and it can have a comm station. So there's usually reasons to come to it.
hmm Yeah, and it's your typical building.
Yeah.
You know, there's a large like deck, and there's usually like some nail containers there. Um, and like you mentioned, signals is there,
hmm
and it is one of the places where it can get pretty busy quick,
Can
like you
Bard
mentioned.
come here? I know
No, I don't think so.
maybe not. I
I
thought
don't remember ever seeing it.
I'm not 100% sure. I know the garage, not garage, but oh no, is it a garage or is it it's like one of those mechanical sort of sheds, isn't it? Like with it has the two exits. Yeah, two entrances, I think. Or is it an actual garage?
No, it's a garage door. I'm trying to think. I don't remember. I think you're right. It's the one with the shelving unit. So there could be a lockbox there.
Yeah, okay, maybe it's a lockbox I'm thinking of. Yeah, because it is the one that has the two entrances, a side entrance and the back entrance kind of thing. So I don't believe it is an actual garage. Yeah. No, I think it's a two entrance room that can have a lockbox in it. I'm not sure if this one has a phone in it. Sometimes those buildings can have phones, but I'm not sure if this one does. And it can have
Yeah, they
shelves and stuff.
randomly.
Yeah.
Yeah, the phones randomly spawn, right? They're not
Oh,
always at the same spots there. So
so it's potential it could have a phone then.
yeah,
Okay. I didn't know that. I didn't realize phones could randomly spawn. Okay, that's good to know. 7 months in, good to know.
that's
Always learning things.
I found that out maybe a month ago. So
There we go.
uh,
Yeah. Well, I
yeah,
just found
I'm in the
out, was
same.
it last week when you were talking about it with that other streamer we were watching, that a scoped weapon will show glint even if you're not scoped in, even if you're just aiming without using the
Yes,
scope, it'll show the glint. I didn't know that. It's like whoa, mind blown.
yeah,
Yeah.
I had learned that like just a few days before. So
Yeah, so it's like we're playing this game for months, and we're finding all these little things out still, and it's like it's kind of cool that way. Like, but
yeah,
things you never think of. What, this produces glint when I'm not actually looking through the site? I guess sun still reflects. Okay.
yep,
But typical kind of loot is around the Lonely Johansen, because it's a typical house. So you'll find inside, you'll find glass and potential crates, or I'm not sure if there's any red crates around. There might be.
yeah. I don't seem to recall one,
Yeah, I can't think of
but
one off the top of my head either. But metal will spawn around it. Out in on the
yes.
deck, you can find. I think you can find meds, but you can also find nails and that kind of stuff as well. I think so.
Yeah,
This,
and there's a ton of cars around it
yeah,
as well,
yeah,
right? Because it's right along the main road
yeah.
that you mentioned.
And then last but not least, the very last POI is Lover's Lookout. That's right at the very south, just sort of a little bit to the west of Lonely Johansen. So south and west, right at the very like edge. There's this thing called Lover's Lookout. It has like a couple picnic tables. And there is a path that sort of goes right by it or through it. Um, I'm not sure if what spawn is there anything that can spawn there?
Consumables. It's like,
Another
you know how
consumable? Okay.
there's like certain maps where like it's just like consumables. It's like this is one of the spots
Okay.
that it'll have like one if not two consumable containers.
Okay. Good. Yeah. Good to know.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and there's like one spawn point like right on it, I believe.
Yeah. Or right next to it. Yeah. I think I've spawned there
Yeah.
before for sure. Yeah. So it's not an exciting location, but it does have
No.
and potential. I don't know for sure. Potential lighter spawn. But I'm not sure if the bigger lighter can spawn there or not. But it's the type of location where the bigger lighter could spawn, so I wouldn't be surprised if it does
Yeah.
spawn there. But I can't say
Yes.
for sure. Yeah. But yeah, that's overall that's Fisk. We did vaguely mention the exits, so there's a total of 4 exits, and now the top exit, which is the pier exit, is a locked exit. We mentioned that, and then it needs 5 fuel to open. So that used to be a really bad camping spot. I don't know how it is now. Camping is, how camping is now in this season with the mortars that can drop if someone's location for too long. But that was a location where camping was pretty rampant in that exit when
Yeah.
it wasn't a locked exit. Because there's a lot of the pier area has a lot of underneath that people can sort of sit around, and I can't even think of how many times I've been running for that exit only be killed by somebody underneath the pier or underneath one of the houses on the way to that exit. And yeah, it could be frustrating.
Yeah, because it has that little like um, sidewalk underneath the actual pier, right?
Yeah,
So you'll catch a lot of people sitting there,
yeah.
and yeah,
So
it's a good thing that the crows came out,
yeah,
but
crows
it
helped.
was still kind of an issue.
Yeah, crows helped. But then I don't know. Now that it's a locked location, I don't know how much like the mortars, if they would actually help. You'd, other than the fact that you would know someone's maybe camping there if they go off. But you wouldn't get hurt by the mortars because you're underneath, so the mortars wouldn't be able to hit you under there if someone was camping under there. But the fact I think more that it's a locked location makes it that no one wants to camp there because no one knows for sure that someone's going to run up there with 5 fuel to try to unlock it. So I think that might have helped it quite a bit. Um, I can't say for sure though. And then
Yeah, I'm not sure either.
yeah, and the other 3 exits are all along the bottom of the map. One, the 2 extremes of the southeast and the south more west locations, and then almost in between the but not more to the west is one more mountain exit that you can just run to kind of run up to down a little path to get
Yeah,
to. Yeah,
yeah. This is like one of the maps where you may want to have caffeine
it definitely,
or
yeah,
hope to find some.
yeah, and it doesn't seem like a really big map, but it is fairly big. Like it can have up to 12 people. It's not an 8-person map. It's up to 12 people. And there's a
Yep.
lot of running in this map if you're going from one end to the other. And so if you're at any one location and you're running out of time, the chances getting to an exit could be tight. And you may not think it looking at it, but it's a good sized map. Yeah, and it's one of my favorites. I do really like this map for sure.
Yeah, I agree. Like the loot, especially like on the eastern side and the northeastern
Yeah,
side, is really fantastic. Um, my only issue with it is I keep getting caught on rocks and
yeah,
branches and stuff like that.
yeah.
But that's fine. I'll live with it. Uh,
And
but yeah, no, it's
I really don't like spawning on that little island thing too over by the
oh yeah,
I hate spawning over there because you don't know whether or not someone's spawning over there with you, and if they do, it's you can waste a lot of time over there just trying to find out if you're alone.
yeah.
And if you don't try to find out if you're alone, you just decide to book it. That's usually when you're not alone, and so someone's going to shoot you in the
Yeah.
back. So it's like it's annoying.
But on the north side of that island,
Hmm.
you could actually jump across. So there's like a sunken boat,
True.
and then there's like boxes and stuff like that. So you could actually jump from the island to the boat to like it's like a crate or something like
Yeah.
that, and then jump to shore. Like that's one thing I have noticed that it seems a little different from like when Fisk used to be around.
Mm.
So I don't know for sure if they changed like those items in the water per se, but it seems to be a lot easier and quicker to get across now.
And
Um,
that's one thing.
but
Yeah.
yeah, like that's one way of getting across if you are spawning on the north side, because if you don't want to head south and then try to make it through that man-made kind of bridge, uh, you know, you can still make it across to the mainland that way.
Yeah, and that was one thing I wanted to mention. We haven't really touched base on this map since it was gone and they had issues with it and they brought it back. There have been some changes to it. Now, looking at this is an older map that we're flashing up throughout this episode. It hasn't changed so much that this map is no longer useful. It's still useful. It shows the majority, pretty much shows all the buildings. I thought there was less buildings, or I thought there was more buildings before, but now that I'm looking at this older map, I don't think there actually was. I just might have been my memory was a little bit foggy. I think it's still basically laid out like this as you're looking at it. But like one of the houses they changed. The when you're at the northern part where you have those like the empty bay going all the way along, you've got those two red fisherman shacks followed by a garage and then a white house with which has a little tool shed behind it. That white house used to be a whole different style of house. It was in the past it was the larger two-story house, the same that on Victorson would have been the guest house. So
Oh,
that
okay.
that larger two-story house that has two bedrooms upstairs, and quite often we'll have like a bard in the bottom kind of thing, in bottom sort of offshoot office space. So and is quite often referred to as a restaurant on some maps. So that's the type of house that
Hmm.
used to be, and you could get on the roof on that house and everything. And then they changed it so it's a little bit smaller two-story house. So that was a big change. They also got rid of a lot of vehicles in the parking lot area of the boss's office, like that whole factory. Used to have a lot more vehicles in that area, so that was sort of reduced. Um, I think some of those old storage junk. I think there's like one building that seems really empty. I don't recall if it was that empty before, so maybe they got some rid of some items in there too. But that's just conjecture. I don't remember for sure because I didn't spend a lot of time around there. Um, they
Yeah.
made little changes like that. And I'm wondering if it's like to maybe make the map a little less dense for a number of items they had to render. I don't know. Maybe that was causing some of the issues.
Yeah, it's quite
Yeah,
possible.
but
Because like the closest house to the westerly exit,
hmm
like I recall that being a different building altogether.
oh, was it?
Like it's not the same
Oh, I
house.
don't remember.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I seem to recall it being a different one, and now it's what it is now there. But
yeah,
um, yeah, it's hard to tell because it's been like a season. I'm pretty sure like Fisk got taken out of the rotation near the end of season 5 and not actually season
yeah.
6.
And I don't
Um,
remember, so I don't remember if it got like
yeah,
if it went out of rotation at the end of season 5 and I just didn't notice. It's quite possible.
yeah.
Yeah,
But yeah, there's like a few minor tweaks there here and there type thing. It would have been kind of cool to see what like they did, because like it'd be nice to have a patch notes type thing. I guess I'm trying to
yeah.
say is like what changed on the map per se
Yeah,
type
how did
thing.
it
But
change? Yeah, that would have been kind of cool to see. They don't always show us
but
that kind of stuff, so yeah.
yeah, but it's definitely nice to have it back in the rotation for
hmm
sure.
No, it does, and not just for the people who are looking for that lighter, just because it was a
Yes.
fun map to play. Because if you're a looter like I am, you definitely have your routes, and it's like, oh yeah, I know. Okay, I'm here. I'm going to take this route. I'm going to try to get work my way around the coast and try to get as much loot as I can. Yeah, before I head out. But yeah, that is Fiske Fabrikk. So that's that map, and hope this was helpful for you. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back in a couple weeks with our next episode, and we'll see what we're talking about then. But we'll leave you
Yep.
there, and yeah, well, hopefully we'll see you out in the Outlands. And again, I'm Dr. Anton.
And I'm DJ Spencer.
Okay. And we'll see you out in the Outlands. Have a great night. Take care.
Bye.